in New England, I never had anything like what the Shuar in the Amazon eat. And they don't drink water. They drink a kind of beer made out of women chewing and spitting the manioc root spit beer that because of they know the river waters are filled with organic matter that's not safe to drink. And that night on the shamanic journey, this vision quest, I saw that it wasn't the food and drink killing me. It was this voice from somebody like my mother saying, it will kill you. And I saw that it was this Jaguar. I've got this Jaguar on right now. Isn't it beautiful, Jaguar? So I saw in this vision quest that the shaman said to me, touch the Jaguar. And it scared me because I look around. Was there a Jaguar coming out of the jungle? No, but the Jaguar appeared to me as a vision. And that's when I touched it, I heard this voice saying, the food and drink will kill you. And I also saw how that same food and drink were very nutritious for the Shuar, very healthy people, incredibly robust, vital people who live to be very old if they're not killed in a hunting accident or something. And so I saw that night that the perception had molded my reality. That led to many other teachings from shamans around the world, and also in psychotherapy, quantum physics, corporate marketing. All of those are based on the idea that our perceptions create our reality to a very, very large degree. A couple of other stories that come to mind, and then we're gonna do some journey where you're gonna go in and look at this for yourself, a shamanic journey like what I did that night. But just a couple of other sharings. So for me, forests are sacred places. They're wonderful. I'm getting some feedback from something. I don't know. Okay. So I grew up, surrounded by forests in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire has gone from 1900 when it was 80% deforested to now when it's 84% forested. Vermont's done something similar. The only states that have done that. Coming up is I'll now receive the schedule real shortly. Surrounded by forests. And there's some strange feedback here. Are we doing okay, Jessica? I'll now receive the schedule real shortly. Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna just mute everybody and then we should be good.
Okay. Great. So I grew up surrounded by forests, and I spent a lot of time in the forest, and they were a very sacred, comforting place for me. So today I live near forests. That's my choice on this up in the state of Washington, and every day I go into the forest, or just about every day, and especially if I'm feeling a little tense about something, the forests embrace me. I love them, and I love the Amazon forest. I have a very good friend, a woman who grew up in an area where there were forests, and a man was murdered when she was quite young in the forest. And she also had read, tales of the fairy tales of some of the grim fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel, where the forests were menacing. And so for her, the forests are scary. They're dark, and it's hard to get her to change that perception. But these are both two totally different perceptions, and yet they mold our reality. For me, my reality is the forests are wonderful. I go there when I need to feel secure. For her, it's the opposite. She has a perception that the forests are threatening, they're dangerous. That's an example. And I'm going to give these because we're going to do a journey where you're going to look at some of your things. So I just wanted to give you a few examples. So another one is, as a kid, I grew up very close to a lake in New Hampshire. There's a forest and lake. And in those days, you didn't, at least my family and most people I knew didn't teach a child to swim until we were around 4 or 5 years old. And what we were taught, though, was to be very careful of the water. Stay away, be careful. You can go up on the shore, but be very careful. It's dangerous. The water is dangerous. So there's perception, the parents didn't want us to drown. And then when I was around, 4 or 5 years old, they started to teach me to swim. But I already had this perception of the danger. And they had to really work on changing that perception, holding me in the water, saying, oh, Johnny, that the water's safe if you just learn to swim. We'll help you do that. We'll help you do that. And so, again, it was the perception of the reality originally was the water's dangerous and stay away. And then, well, no, the water is nurturing if you just learn to swim. That totally, that totally changed that, that reality for me. And so we could go on with so many things in our own personal lives of how perception molds our reality. And of course, now we're in this coronavirus lockdown or self-isolation, whatever you want to call it. And for some people, that's extremely stressful. You know, that's a big Jaguar to touch. All of these perceptions create these Jaguars that keep us from swimming, that keep us from going in the woods, or keep us or send us into the woods. But we touch that Jaguar and it empowers us. So if we have this feeling, well, the coronavirus it's terrible. I can't possibly continue to self-isolate for another week, another month, 2 months. How long is this going to go on? Oh my, that's so stressful. But if we reach out and touch that Jaguar, and the Jaguar says, hey, look, you got all this time. You can read the books you've always wanted to read, see the movies, write the book you've always wanted to write, play that piano that's sitting off in the corner that you haven't played for years, get back into that. Whatever, we touch that Jaguar and it sends us in a new perception. So the perception is this virus is giving us a gift of time, of free time to ourselves. And if we've lost our job, we get very, very stressful about that. It's a terrible stress. But if we start to then touch the Jaguar and say, well, wait, what opportunities has it created? Maybe I wasn't that happy with that job anyway. What can I do to create something myself? Can I create my own? Do I have an artistic flair, for example? Maybe I could sell some of my art through the internet. Or whatever. There's so many things that when we touch that Jaguar, it turns around our perception, and in turning around our perception, we create a new reality for ourselves. So I think what the next step would be is to take you on a little journey, and I'm going to guide you through it. You don't have to give a lot of thought right now. I'm going to be rattling and talking, and I do want to say that these shamanic journeys to me are extremely powerful. I've been doing these all my life since I was taught in the Peace Corps, since a shamanic journey saved my life. I've been doing them ever since and writing about them. One of the important things is don't become dependent on a rattle or chanting or music or anything in particular. We use these when we're all together to kind of keep us together. But I encourage you all to do this on your own frequently, whenever you feel like it. And don't become dependent on anything. If there's a lawnmower outside the window, let it be your guide. You know, bring in the outside noises. I remember the first time I went to Ladakh, which used to be part of Tibet and now is an Indian protectorate. And then later I went into Chinese Tibet. And I remember thinking the first time I went into one of these Tibetan monasteries or lamaseries, I figured we were going there, we'll meditate, it'll be so quiet and peaceful. No way. It was one of the noisiest places I've ever been. There's whistles and rattles and drums and bells ringing all the time, and there's roosters crowing outside the windows and dogs barking, and you learn that it's just you incorporate all those sounds. So when you're doing this on your own, just don't get stressed out by outside noises, people talking, dogs barking, lawnmowers going off, whatever it is. But for now, I'm going to be doing a little rattling. So please get really comfortable. If you want to lie on the floor or on the bed or on a couch, that's good. Or sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, or sit on the floor. You can even do this standing up. You can do it in your favorite yoga position if you like. Whatever you're doing, just get really, really relaxed. Let go. Let go of all your thoughts. Let go of all your concerns. Let go of all your ideas. Release any perturbations that you have, things that perturb you. Just let go. Let go of your body. Just release, relax all your muscles. everything, your face, your eyes, your mouth, your shoulders, your arms, your hands. Just feel them releasing, letting go. You might even want to tense things, like you can tense your hand and then totally release it. Your abdomen, your hips, your legs, your feet, your toes, letting everything just totally, totally relax. Letting go. And now feel yourself sinking down into the earth, or if you've been trained to go to an upper world, that's fine too. But let Pachamama, the earth, the universe, caress you, massage you, love you, hold you, going deeper and deeper into the earth or higher into the heavens, deeper and deeper, feeling more and more relaxed, aware of your breathing, and on your out breath, just letting go of any lasting tensions that might be there. And on your in-breath, bringing in the love, the connection you feel for Pachamama, the earth, the universe, the heavens. Deeper and deeper, more and more relaxed. Deeper and deeper, feeling the love of the earth. Deeper and deeper, more and more relaxed. And now you find yourself in a sacred place. Some of you have done this with me before. You may go to the same place you've been to other times, or if you're new to this, or even if you've done it before, you may go to a different place. It could be a place you've actually visited, perhaps as a child, or just a totally new place, or it may be right where you are right now. But it's a place where you feel totally safe and secure. See this place if you're visual, if you're not visual, just know it, imagine it. You may taste it, smell it, hear it, feel it. Just explore it for a few moments, feeling the security that you have in this beautiful, beautiful space. And now while you're in this sacred space, think of a time in your life when you change your perceptions about something, or some person, or something, a perceptual change, and how that impacted the reality. And what I would suggest is that you look at a reality before you had the perceptual change. See it almost like a hologram, like it's just happening. For example, the example I use is as a tiny child being told that be afraid of the water, be careful of the water's dangerous. I would see that clearly. And then I would see my parents changing that perception, telling me, well, no, now that you can learn to swim, we'll help you, we'll protect you, we'll hold you in the water. And you can see that the water is welcoming, it's beautiful, it's healing. You just need to learn to move your hands and legs and swim. And so I had to change that perception. It wasn't just about the physical act of moving my hands and arms. It was also about changing the perception of the water. And then I would see myself in that water as a little older child, learning to swim and welcoming, embracing, feeling the love of the water. Find your own situation where you had a reality that you see clearly. At the beginning, you had one perception, you changed that perception, and it changed your reality. And now just allow your consciousness to return to your sacred place, giving thanks for that experience before we move on to the next one. And now take a moment to visualize what you want to do for the rest of your life. What is the thing that'll bring you the greatest satisfaction for the rest of your life? What is your bliss, your higher purpose? We could say it's your mission, your dream. And again, visualize that as already happening. So for me, I would say I want to keep writing books. I love to write. I love to write, so I can envision myself continuing to write and going out and having experiences to write about. So just take a look. If you're looking at a hologram again, what is it you most really want? Be bold. Be audacious. Really look at what you really, 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 really want. What does it feel like when you achieve this, when you're doing this? It's probably a process, not necessarily a goal. Or it could be a goal too. How does this new reality look? And now, take a look at what has blocked you from doing this or might block you. What are the barriers? Perhaps the voices like that of my mother or whoever it was saying the food and drink will kill you. What has held you back from realizing this dream, manifesting this goal, or what might hold you back? What are the jaguars that stand in your way? And you may actually see it as a jaguar. What are the perceptions that have held you back? And now take a look at what do you need to do to alter those perceptions. Touch that Jaguar. What is it that you need to do to create a perception, to buy into a perception that helps you move forward into the new reality? Not the action so much as the perception. How do you change that? The perception of a young boy. The water isn't dangerous if I learn to swim. Then it embraces me. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. This is a new perception. And now, what are the actions I need to take that come from this new perception and allow me to move into the new reality? The young boy then, once he's overcome the perception of the fear of water and he now sees the water as a friend, as embracing it, he now actually has to learn to do some strokes with his hands, the dog paddle to begin with, and then maybe more complex strokes. Those are the actions. What are the actions you need to take? See yourself actually taking these actions. And now allow your consciousness to return to your sacred place. And if you haven't entirely completed this process, if you feel there's more to be done, then that's fine. You can go back and do it later today or this evening. But in the meantime, for now, go to your sacred place and see yourself writing down the action that you need to start taking tomorrow morning or tomorrow sometime during the day. The first step toward using this new perception to create your new reality of being everything that you want to be. And this may be a little difficult for some whose reality involves moving beyond this time of self-isolation. But there's things you can start while you're in isolation. Perhaps simple things, sending texts, writing things down, picking up a flute and starting to play it. Whatever it is, just write something down. It could be very simple, or it could be relatively complex. See yourself writing it down, the step you're going to take tomorrow. And now, while you're in your sacred place, make a commitment to every day. I suggest in the evening, but it doesn't have to be, writing down something, actually writing something down of what you're going to do the next day to further this dream, move into this new reality of who you are, what brings you your bliss, your greatest satisfaction. Every evening, come up with an idea that you can take action on the next morning. And sometimes this may involve also altering a perception again a little bit. This may be a process that's ongoing of creating new perceptions around this, new values, new actions. But every day, create a little plan for the next day. And when you wake up in the morning, every morning, read what you wrote the night before and commit to doing it. And I want to say that if you miss a day or two, don't be tough on yourself. It's okay. You don't have to do it every day. But do it regularly. And you'll find great joy in this. And as you do it, the more you do it, the better you get at it. The more fun you'll have with it, and the easier it becomes. So write down something to start tomorrow and make a commitment to doing this on a regular basis. Every day, or more or less every day. And now allow your consciousness to return to your sacred place once again. And give thanks to your sacred place for being here for you. Know that you can return to it anytime you want. You don't need to hear my voice or the rattles. It doesn't need to take a long time. You can go there very quickly if you want to. It's all about perception. And in the shamanic journey, time is irrelevant. Things can happen very quickly that seem to be extremely and are extremely important and intense. Thank your sacred place. Thank any guidance you've received. And this vision you've had, this new perception, this Jaguar that you've touched. Give thanks to the Jaguar. And give thanks to yourself for being here, for showing up, for doing this, and for committing to continuing to do it. Feel your gratitude for Pachamama, the earth, the heavens, the universe. And I'm going to be speeding up the rattling, and as I do so, allow yourself to come back to where the journey began, rising up through the earth or down through the universe. And again, feeling the love, feeling the universe, feeling Pachamama loving you, holding you, caressing you, massaging you. And at the end, I'll do 4 single shakes. And on the 4th shake, if you're not already fully present back in where you began, eyes open, be so on the 4th shake. Take a deep breath. Feel your environment. Embrace everything that's around you. And I give thanks to these Mayan Rattles, little tiny rattles, but they do a pretty good job and they can travel well. Deep breath. Let it out with a nice sound. So I think, Jessica, if you can come back on, perhaps people could share on the chat that experience. Or if they have questions, that's okay too. We can take a few minutes to do questions, but I'd really love to hear some of the experiences that people have. So,
awesome. I'm going to keep my video off for internet stability's sake, but I'm happy to read some chats that are coming in. So as John said, feel free please to share your experience or anything that came up from you in the chat section. Awesome. Manveer says, wow, that was so powerful.
Thank you, Manveer. Just across the water from me over there in Seattle. Good to see you.
Donna shares, I feel a real sense of relief.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Manveer shared, I was in Stonehenge in the circle, I think, as the sacred space.
Beautiful.
Kat shares, love the sounds, felt so connected. Caroline says, I may have fallen asleep, but feel great now. I know I entered my secret space, but little else.
Well, you know, and other people may have experienced that. I think what it said, that's a really important thing. I really appreciate you saying that, Carolyn. These journeys, we get exactly what we need. I've always felt that, and I was taught by the shamans that that whatever the guide, the facilitator, the shaman, or whoever it is doing it, in this case, my voice, me, says, you need to have your own experience. And the spirits come in. That's what we mean by inspiration, being in spirit, being in spirit. And sometimes the spirits tell us that we need to sleep. And when we're asleep, our subconscious is doing amazing things. So even if you're not aware of what went on there, there's something deep happening. And the subconscious almost always will hear the rattle, but probably was hearing the explanation. I think you were getting something perhaps more deeply than you realize, that, well, things will come to you in the next few days that may surprise you. And if you think about it, you might want to relate it back to this. We see the same thing happen sometimes when people are with shamans in the Amazon and they do sacred plants like ayahuasca or San Pedro, or some people have these incredible experiences, and somebody else on the same dosage from the same shaman the same night will feel that nothing's happened, but a lot's happened. In a few days or even weeks later, something happens that they wouldn't have they don't know where it's coming from, and it's probably coming from there. So if you fall asleep or whatever happens on the journey, touch that Jaguar, touch that Jaguar that might be creating a little fear in you, or a little disturbance, a little anxiety. Well, I didn't do that right. It didn't happen the way the voice was telling me. It didn't quite happen that way. That's just another Jaguar saying, you're not doing it right. You did do it right. Whatever you got was exactly what you need right now. And I think that's important. And you can always go back to that sacred place and redo, or you can listen to this video again if you want, or just do it on your own. But know that you got exactly what you need right now. And that's always true, I believe. That's a very, very strong shamanic concept. I believe it completely. Thank you again, Carolyn, for sharing that.
Carrie Ann shares, I met Anubis, if I'm saying that correct, and he sat me in a chair and did work on me.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Caroline also says, I definitely needed a peaceful sleep in the moment. So perfect.
Wow, good.
Yeah, it was a very strong and transformational experience. I entered my sacred space and experienced a real sense of relief of my big fear from the past. Beautiful. clarity and peace
Yes.
with not having a grand vision, focused on the qualities and beliefs I'm working on to find my. Claire shares, my Jaguars are much happier tonight, no tears.
Great, great.
Vikram says, in my sacred space, I became a miniature Lego person in awe of how big everything was around me.
Wow, can't we all relate to that? You know, I often think when I'm looking up at those stars, how tiny we all are, and how yet we are the stars. We are stardust. We are the stardust. The stars are us, and we are the stars. We're as big as the universe, and we're also able to look at it from this perspective, like the Lego guy. That's or girl, whatever it was, and that's I love it. That's a beautiful analogy. Thank you for sharing that. So I think, but do we have one or two more, Jessica, you want to do, or should we move on?
No, we can move on.
Okay. So I don't want to make this go on a lot longer. We said we'd end within the hour. It's now been 45 minutes, I think. But I do want to address this idea of fear and anxiety, and maybe not thinking we're doing things the right way. We're falling asleep, and we think, well, maybe I shouldn't be falling asleep. You should be falling asleep. It's great, whatever it is. There's this concept that there's a right way, and that there's that we have there's some authority that's telling us what to do. And maybe I seemed like that at the time, and I certainly don't see myself as that. And I wish I'd said at the beginning, which I'm saying now, is that whatever you do, it's the right way. The spirits truly speak to us. That's the whole idea of inspiration, imagination. I, the magus, I, the shaman, I, the magus, imagination. And so, if we just totally open to what the universe has to offer, to what the spirits, the inspiration, however word you want to use, has to offer, we get this amazing message and this tremendous power. And some of that's touching that Jaguar. The Jaguar often says, oh, wow, I'm not doing it right. Let's face it, that's a perception that we're given in schools. Most of us anyway, we're beginning, in preschool or first grade or whenever it is, like, oh, the teacher tells you there's a right way to do it, wrong way to do it. So we have that perception drilled into us. But it's an important perception to move beyond, to touch the Jaguar that says, you got to do it the right way, the way the authority tells you to do it. No, if we've learned anything from climate change, from species extinctions, from income inequality, now from the coronavirus, it's that we haven't been doing things necessarily right when we've been following the prescribed procedures. Our education system hasn't really prepared us for a lot of this stuff. In fact, it may have created a lot of these problems. And I don't just mean our formal education, I mean our whole upbringing, our whole education. So to touch the Jaguar, that's our fear of change, and almost all of us fear change. And that's a big Jaguar. That's why the subtitle of the book, which I just got the hardback copy yesterday. Isn't that Jaguar beautiful? I got a few in a box yesterday, and it's just getting to the bookstores and distributors now. The subtitle, that's what I wanted to show you. The subtitle, Transforming Fear into Action to Change Your Life and the World. It is all about touching that fear, and often it's the fear that we're not doing it right, maybe the fear of isolation, and maybe the fear of losing our job, or the fear of not being accepted as a writer or an actor or a musician. Touching that fear, touching that Jaguar, and not buying in a place that says, you're not good enough. You don't have enough education. You don't have the right upbringing. You're not from the right cultural background. You don't have enough money. These voices, touch those Jaguars. And then we can move forward from that perception. And this idea that I am the magus, imagination, and I am in spirit. Homer, this great philosopher of ancient times, when he wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, he always began by calling in the muses. Oh muse, oh spirit guides, guide me, guide me. And I know when I do my best writing, I'm just open to the spirits. I'm being inspired, inspiration. And I can't wait for that. I have to keep writing, and then it comes. But if I wait for it, it probably is not going to come. So to really, I think this conversation about that revolves around someone falling asleep during the journey. Thanks again, because it opens us to this idea that there is no right way. There's only your way. Your way is the right way. And as long as you follow your heart, as long as you go into your bliss, as long as you really look at what brings you the most satisfaction in life and do it, that's the right path. And nobody can tell you what that is. So Jessica, maybe we could take around 5 minutes or so now for if anybody has any questions, or if there's anything you, Jessica, want to add, we could do that, and then we'll do a closing together.
Sure. So that sounds like a great idea. If anybody has any questions, feel free to pop that in the chat. And just as a PSA, when we send out the recording, I'm going to also be sending a new updated system for our future series. So that will be coming, and it will all be smooth and sailing going forward. So we have a few messages coming in. Caroline says, thank you for that affirmation. I do not feel badly about sleeping. It is a source of inspiration. Great.
Great.
Sue says, I've been doing your process for the past week, and it has been so powerful. Naming my dreams, and it has helped and how it helps the world, what my Jaguars are, and how to touch it and take steps to shift perceptions and move forward. I'm so grateful. That's beautiful, Sue.
Thank you.
Greg shares, the sequestering at home has allowed me to begin doing some of the things I had wanted to do, but always made excuses not to. For example, daily journaling. This exercise today has reinforced my efforts and encouraged me to continue touching this particular Jaguar.
Thank you, Greg. Great. Keep touching that Jaguar. So, I guess I would just like to close with the idea, the thought that I truly believe that we are so blessed to live at this time in history when the earth is speaking so loudly to us. Pachamama is speaking loudly and clearly to us in so many ways. And, you know, from the shamanic perspective,